All right. Today, last week was, all of them to me are a little challenging, but we started with an introduction. We're looking at the one another phrases of the Bible. We started with an introduction, and then we, through Jason Smith, who taught it for me, looked at love one another. And then last week was a really challenging one at times, forgive one another. And today, we're going to do one that will still be a challenge, but I believe is being done in a lot of ways. That is, bear one another's burdens. In Christ, we're not meant to carry life's weight alone. Isn't that good news? That through Jesus, we do not have to bear burdens, weight alone. In fact, what did Jesus say? That first of all, where should we cast them? On Him, right? And He will make our burdens light. He will make the load light. He will carry it for us. That's what the cross did. It took care of our biggest burden, right? Our biggest burden would be sin. Jesus went to the cross to bear that load for all of us. And certainly we never want to take that for granted, but bearing one another's burdens is a Christ-like action, but it's also an obligation. We are to be like Christ, right? In everything that we do, we are. I think it's great that the history says, or the tradition says, that when the church were first called, when they were first called Christians, it was to be an insult. Oh, these people that are trying to be little Christs out here, these little messiahs out here. But really, that's what we are, right? We're trying to be a little bit of a representation of Jesus Christ, the Messiah. We're trying to bring Jesus to others. And so we are to be Christ-like. We know that. But it's also not an option. We have an obligation to bear one another's burdens. I know a lot of people in here, Kent and so many others, love to hike and all, and I would imagine, I've never been a hiker, but I would imagine that, I have gone up, I guess, a little mountain before, but it had a pathway, so I didn't climb it. But your quads start burning and everything, you struggle for some oxygen a little bit the higher you get. Could you imagine somebody who you walk and you're able to get up 3/4 of the way up this mountain, and there's somebody there burdened over with their backpack, and it's laying down, and would you feel an obligation to help them? I believe we would, right? Hey, let me carry your pack for a little while. Yes, ma'am.
That's kind of like if you, like you said, we carry other people's burdens and things like that.
Right. Exactly. You're exactly right.
But Jesus did it, and He carried the cross plus us.
Amen. He put us on His back, didn't He?
Yeah.
On His shoulders, and He carried us. As we talked about even last week, in that while we were still sinners. He didn't just do it for the good people, right? He did it for the vile, the enemies of the cross. And so, none of us would say, hey, I'm just going to let that person lay over there, and we'd at least try to carry it for a little while, I believe. Well, that's the same mentality. Are we going to walk by somebody that's burdened down? You remember when Jesus said, go the extra mile? Why did He say that? What was the obligation under Rome? They had to go a mile, but He said to carry it another mile. When was the burden? The burden was in the first mile because it was an obligation. They had to do it. But what happened in the second mile? It became freedom. They carried it because they cared. They carried it because of who they were. And that's the whole mindset of it. Carrying someone else's burdens shouldn't feel like an obligation. Even though it is an obligation, it should just feel like the right thing to do. Kind of like if we were hiking up a mountain and we saw somebody hunched over because they couldn't carry their pack anymore. We need to help. It's an obligation. We just feel it in our hearts. Are there people out there that would walk by? Probably, but that's not who we are. That's not who the church is supposed to be. Ma'am?
I believe we are obligated in Christ to help people.
Absolutely.
Just like you were saying last week, we don't let people run over us.
Right.
But if you are a Christian, in your heart, you're supposed to help that person.
That's right. You're exactly right. And we're going to look at that in Scripture in just a minute. Go ahead, Michael.
You're saying the first mile is obligation I look at. Second mile, I consider consideration.
Absolutely.
Consider yourself being on that side, how you would want to be.
That's right. You released it all in the second mile. That second mile mentality. And really, when we go into this, carrying one another's burdens. Dan, did you have something? Go ahead.
I first said that in that second mile,
Mm-hmm.
the soldier's walking off. Why are you doing this?
Right.
You know, you get a chance to talk to them
Absolutely.
about Christ.
Now you get to tell them who Jesus is. This is the reason I'm doing it. And it goes back to really what Lorraine said. He's carrying a lot for us every mile, right? In a world, and the reason this is even something, and I know in the church we get this, and I think this church, folks, y'all do a great job of bearing one another's burdens. I mean, really, it is great. But we live in a society that's very independent, very selfish, really. And the mentality is, well, you got to, the old saying, pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. Well, the gospel is communal. The church is a body of different parts that all have to pull their weight, right? But sometimes we've got to help them along. And that being said, there's no I in team, as you've heard, but there is an I in unity. It starts with us. We have to have self-reflection, but it's communal. It's like a neighborhood that loves each other and gets together, and we work together and do that. Let's get into what our text, one of our key texts will be today. Galatians 6, please. When you have it, if somebody would read verses 1 and 2. We're going to read two scriptures in a moment, but let's all look at that one first. Thank you, buddy.
Galatians chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. Brethren, if a man is overtaken in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of gentleness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ.
We're going to come back to there, I promise. We're going to open that up and dissect it. But let's now go to Romans 15, Paul writing again. Romans 15, 1 through 3, please.
If we then who are strong ought to bear with the scruples of the weak, and not please ourselves. Let each of us please his neighbor for his good, leading to edification. For even Christ did not please himself, but as it is written, the reproaches of those who reproach you fell on me.
Very good. Let's look at the exposition of this, okay? Let's break it down now. Galatians, let's look at that. We're going to look at both sections of Scripture today, but let's start in Galatians 6, especially verse 2. Paul says, bear one another. Again, one another phrase is what we're looking at. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. How many times have we read that and said, well, what's the law of Christ? Maybe we've just read it and accepted it, but let's talk about it today. Let's expound on what it is. What is the law of Christ? Okay. Sir? What'd you say, Brother Jim? Oh, that's right. But remember, he did make a new law. What was it? John 13, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. It does consist of a lot of things. I agree. I think it consists of all the things he taught in the Sermon on the Mount, where he did not come and tear up the old law, but he came to fulfill it. He didn't come to get rid of it. He came to fulfill it. And for instance, in hate, we've looked at it in our study on Wednesday nights. It's not just murder. You just got to start in the heart. So Jesus was about the heart. But specifically today, I want us to focus on that love because it goes hand in hand with what we're doing. Johnny mentioned love the Lord your God and love others as yourself. And Jesus himself said, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Really, it shouldn't have been a new commandment. But Christ came to set the law, the legalism, if you will, on fire. Remember, he came with a sword. He didn't come to make peace with the law. He came to change things. And with that, it went from about keeping the law, because keeping the law became rigid. And sometimes they were lacking love. And so this was a new concept. It shouldn't have been, but it was a new concept to them. And so the law of Christ is love. To me, I can sum it all up. Everything that we said. If I'm going to keep the law, period, I've got to love, right? Jesus said, when they asked what was the greatest commandment, he didn't say, no other gods before you. He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. If I love the Lord my God with everything I have, am I going to have any other gods before him? Am I going to bear false witness? No. And so that was the point of it. And he said, second is love your neighbor as yourself. Remember, the first few 10 commandments are about our relationship with God. The last are our relationship with our neighborhoods. Grady?
I think you're spot on with everything. I got a verse, Philippians 2:3.
Yes, sir.
This is NLT. Don't be selfish and don't try to impress others. Be humble. Think of others as better than yourself. 4, don't look out only for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. 5, you must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had.
That's right. And what again, he's about to go into there, have the same mindset which Christ had. And that's where it leads into that. But it's about, you got to get rid of self. Remember, when we came up out of the water, it's not about us anymore. It's about Christ. It's about his church. And with that, if we understand that love is that law, if I'm fulfilling what Christ said to do, and that is to love, then I'm going to bear one another's burdens. Loving one another isn't abnormal. In fact, it's practical, right? One of the greatest ways we can show each other we love each other is by what? Bearing one another's burdens. Over here, who was it? Yes, Sister Nash.
Do unto others as you would have them.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The golden rule, we call it, right? Not do unto others as they do unto you. I've heard it said that many times falsely. It's do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Very good. Danny?
To Grady's point, the first verse of chapter 15 in Romans says, now we who are strong have an obligation
Absolutely.
to bear the weakness of those without strength, and not to please ourselves.
That's right. It's not about us, is it? It's about them. Michelle?
I'd like to hear what everybody's definition is of a burden.
You know what? I was about to get into that, and so I'm glad. But I was going to ask the same thing. Let me give you the technical. That's a great point, Michelle. And I think we've got to understand that, because I think we can abuse it. I think we can abuse the definition, and I agree with you. The Greek word is bari. Bari. Sounds a lot like bear, right? It means a heavy weight, often too much for one person to carry alone. In context, then, and I do like Michelle's thought on that. Before I give you what I believe Paul's talking about here, what do you think? David?
Because you may remember your words yesterday at the funeral, but we've had tragic loss, we've had losses in 1 week, up to years. Either way,
Yes.
Families hurting, they're burdened with the loss, sadness, all of those emotions. So at a time when they need help the most, this church, I believe with the way that they have responded in love, whether it's preparing food, cards, visits, loves, prayer, hugs, prayers, all of that rolled up into supporting someone, a fellow Christian who's heavily burdened.
That's right.
Beyond
That's right.
comprehension. But you used some words yesterday about,
Sister Rena.
the funerals bringing.
Oh, yeah.
illustrating.
To me, when you look at funerals, yesterday I was so encouraged by the singing. Ivan Harris, one of the members that they grew up knowing in Louisiana, led the singing. And when you heard everybody singing in harmony, to me, it's a little bit of a glimpse of heaven when somebody dies in the Lord like that, because we've all come together to encourage. And that day, what they were doing was putting on the backs. People traveled from Louisiana here. That's why we had such a large crowd. They traveled here to help carry some of that load. That's exactly right. And I think a funeral shows that. And David, to your credit, I think our congregation, I really don't think this is something I have to harp a lot on. The only reason I'm doing this is because it's next in my list. But I do think that individually sometimes we have to look at ourselves. I think, for instance, not everybody can do everything, but when we've called on people to help, they always have. And listen, funerals are not a lot of fun sometimes, but sometimes just going there and hugging a person helps them.
So many people behind the scenes yesterday.
Yeah,
Did what they did here.
absolutely.
Even for that number of people, and there are a lot of people here, and I'm complimenting this person.
Mm-hmm.
But there are dozens more who prepare food.
Yes.
But those that were here could put it out. So there's just so much love and support behind the scenes that family may not ever know about. That's what God calls us to do, and I think that's the most special.
I totally agree. And did it feel like an obligation to do that? No. Every week. Man, there's so many things goes on here, and I don't want to get in trouble because I'll start mentioning some. But there are a group of ladies, a couple that have been mentioned already this morning, over here to my left a little bit. They go around a lot of places taking food to people. They do it every week. Is that a chore, Miss Joanne? Is it a chore to do that? I mean, when y'all saw Jeanette, what'd you say it was, Sister Clarice? A joy, a treat. Ashley?
I'll say another example that's probably on the other side from having babies in our home. And I don't consider it feels almost wrong to say a burden.
Right.
Welcoming
Right. I know what you're saying.
people into your home.
An overwhelming moment, though.
An overwhelming amount of work.
Yes, yes.
Two babies and yourself, you're not completely well and healthy as you were.
Right.
And, from our perspective, this church, when they came home, I didn't prepare a meal for my family for, I think it was 5 weeks.
Wow.
Because everyone here fed us and came, and just the overwhelming amount of calls and texts and visits that when we couldn't leave our house, we couldn't, I would always say the highlight of my day was walking to the garage. That was as far as I could
God love
get
you.
out of town. And so, I don't know, sometimes you might realize the impact that can have on somebody. But then, on top of that, everyone in our networks seeing that, because they
Yes.
offered to bring me meals and things, and I would say, well, I appreciate so much, but we are already covered.
Wow.
Because our church has blanketed us in
Wow.
love. And our coworkers saw that, our family members, friends, and neighbors around, our home saw it.
Sure.
So I just wanted to say, that it means a lot, and maybe more than you might think at this.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing that. I've known Ashley a long time and Glenn, but Ashley I taught at Mobile Christian. I'm so proud of them. And now I'm totally shifting gears. But did y'all know, I mean, we got famous people here. Ashley is very, very well known in her field and written some pretty important articles and stuff. But all that to say, I'm thankful for you sharing that, and you and Glenn mean so much to us. And all three of your sweet, precious babies. And even, here's the beautiful thing about a forgetful minister sometimes. I totally forgot about Evelyn's surgery last week until Michelle sent me a message that they were already home because they had texted another group, and I felt about this big, you know. And so I instantly was texting Glenn, instantly was texting Ashley, and she's like, they didn't even have enough room for you. You know, it just made me feel better about it, you know. So it means a lot. It really does. I think I missed somebody, but if not, I'm going to move on. Yeah, we got to answer the question. But I could hear these stories all day too. That's great. What is a burden in your mind, according to Bari?
It's a need that we identify that someone has, right?
Yeah, I mean,
If somebody's carrying something,
right.
right? And obviously, we have learned, we know we need to lean on God, but sometimes it's the weight of whatever we're dealing with seems even outside our ability to manage.
Right.
Our recognition, or at least hopefully our ear to hear someone who's willing to say, I'm in need,
Right.
is to answer that burden and carry it best we can.
I agree. Now, I will say, I'm very capable, so is Bo, so is Madeline, so is Michelle, of cutting my own grass. But if I say, man, it's really hot outside, and I would need somebody to cut my grass for me, that's not a need, right? That's being lazy. I mean, I know I'm being extreme with that, but I think we can abuse it.
We're not talking about the burden of someone's mortgage, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, I'd like a little help this month, elders, you know. My mortgage is coming due again next month. So, but yeah, I mean, I think we have to understand it's a heavy weight. A heavy weight. Anything else? I'm going to answer it too, by the way. Go ahead, Michael, and then Joanne.
A burden for me might be different, something like that. So
Very true.
it's the person.
Very true. I think it depends on the situation and the circumstance. I think you have to understand that. Very true. Miss Joanne?
To me, a burden would be a load,
Sure.
it's a load that you're carrying and it almost breaks.
I agree. To me, that's the heavy weight. It's got you weighed down so much, you just, kind of like that hiker that we're talking about. They couldn't go any further. And we need to carry that pack for them. Great point. Todd?
I think the disciples struggle with the same question.
I do too.
When did we give you a drink of water?
Right.
When did we feed you?
Right.
When did we clothe you?
Right. And Jesus, in that story, was talking about those who needed it, those who didn't have, right? He said, when you did it to the least of these, the poor, those who are hurting, those who are struggling. And listen, it's answered in the verses. It's answered in the verses. David, and then I'm going to get into it.
One comment, if I may, and I may be seeing all of this wrong, but from our perspective, looking at someone's situation, if we perceive that they are under a burden or having a burden, it's what God does with our heart that allows us to respond. My point is, I had my surgery, I had people often come over and do things in my yard. I didn't feel they needed to.
Right,
I didn't allow them to, but there's some that would have done it anyway.
right,
Because they thought I needed that.
sure.
So it's our response. It's not so much someone asking for something, but it's our perception of someone's burden.
Right.
Driving the pack on the trail, maybe laying there saying, hey, 5 minutes, I'm gonna get up, I don't
No, I totally agree. I think it gets to a point, even though you had the surgery and all, you weren't broken to the point that you couldn't eventually get back up, you know. Yes, maybe in that moment, like Ashley and Glenn, or Ashley was saying, it wasn't that the babies are a burden. It's just everything was so overloaded that, you know, you're lacking sleep, you're lacking all this. And so just a meal made a big difference. And so, you know, we're not going to cook for Glenn. They don't want me to cook for them ever, but we're not going to cook for Glenn and Ashley the rest of their lives, you know, but through that burden. And I'm just using that as an illustration, not that they would expect that at all, but I'm just saying, you know, it comes to a point where we get them back on their feet. It's not to keep them down. It's about growing. And the verse answers it. Look at verse 1. Galatians now. Remember in Galatians. This may be a two-parter if I don't hurry up. Look at verse 1. What does it say? You can read it. Again. Out loud. Galatians 6. What's verse 1 say?
If a man is overtaken in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted.
What would be the greatest burden a person could face? Losing their soul. Yeah, that we shouldn't hesitate on that one, y'all. The greatest burden we face is sin. This is written in the same context as bear one another's burdens. The first thing, the heaviest weight that we've got to help people with is their spiritual struggles. If someone is caught in sin, we in love have to talk to them. If someone is actively, you know, in sin and struggle, again, it's not get the plank out of your eye before the speck. I'm not talking about in a hypocritical situation. But we have an obligation, not just the elders, we do, not just the ministers, all of us have an obligation to love people enough to help them out of spiritual sin, spiritual burdens, struggles.
Gary, I think the other side of it too is that people may be more willing to receive physical help.
Correct.
Food, whatever money in an emergency situation, but to receive spiritual help, I think that's harder for people. So we as the ones who may be going through a burden or a struggle, a bad season, need to understand, you know, the heart of the compassion of the person who is compelled by the relationship with us and the relationship with God to do this
That's right.
for their soul's sake.
I think you're exactly right, George. It's so much easier to say, hey, can I fix you a meal, rather than, hey, can I talk to you about the sin you're struggling with? And we as Christians have a responsibility. By the way, it is written in that context. Can we deny it? It's written in a spiritual struggle context. Doesn't mean there aren't other hardships. I'm going to talk about that. David? Yes. Now, Jesus had the authority to do that. But you're right, he did, you know. And so even the man on the cross, he forgave his sins before he lost his soul. And, you know, now Jesus, while on earth, had the authority to look at man's heart and forgive sins. We don't have that authority, but we do have an obligation to love people. Do we want people to lose their soul? I think that answer is easy to say no. I agree. Right off the bat, we say no. But sometimes, I think we always mean it. I'm trying to be careful with my words here, but sometimes our actions may not reveal it. Somebody that's living with somebody, let's just say, several people know that, and they don't say anything. I'm saying they're living with somebody in sin, and we don't say anything. Do we really care? I'm not asking for an answer. I'm just asking to think. I mean, I think we do care, but I'm just saying I think sometimes it's easier to say I'm going to go cut your grass than it is to say let me talk to you about living in sin with this person. But what is the context it's written in? Spiritual struggles. Robert?
I think you have to be careful because if you look at verse 5, you got to understand helping means helping. It doesn't mean you take over, it doesn't mean you go over control, it just means you help that person. If you can point out what they're doing wrong, you do it in a loving way. You give them some help to get back in a simple position or a position of where they can handle it themselves, then you let them go and you let them handle it.
Yes.
You got to be careful. If you become overburdened, or if you start to take control, you will drive those people away to where they won't even listen to you at all.
I do agree.
And then you're not helping them at all, again, because they won't listen to you at all.
I do agree. I think that's a good point. Yeah. David?
To tie that together, to your point, do you stay silent or do you at least make an attempt? I think Robert is saying make an attempt, but do it in love and be.
Absolutely.
Goes back to what Danny said.
If we're not going to do it in love, don't do it.
Right. Goes back to what Danny said about soldiers. You have the opportunity to talk to them while you're doing this, while you doing this, the second mile.
Right.
So, plant the seed.
That's right. And let me tell you, I know I've talked to those people. We have talked to those people. We've talked to people like that. A lot of times they might get mad at you. They might even scream at you a little bit. They might get family members upset with you.
Do they ever point out things you might be doing wrong?
They might try to say, yeah, point out things you're doing.
Just say, why are you butting into my business?
Maybe they'll say that. But you know what you say to them? Because I'm trying to fulfill the law of Christ. Because I love you, I'm trying to fulfill the law of Christ. That doesn't mean we don't help people with emotional issues. Listen, I'll never forget this. Virgil, you in here? Yeah, you are in here. You may not even remember this, Virgil. I was living with my in-laws. Michelle was too, by the way, and our children. We didn't just kick each other out. We had sold a house, and we were in the middle of trying to figure out where we're going to live. And so this is before I bought the house we're in now. We bought the house we're in now. And I had my antidepressant medicine with a place that I was trying to help out this pharmacy and these people, and their system went down for about 3 or 4 days. And so I went 3 or 4 days without my medicine. And I went in a tailspin. And I was very just crying. Michelle was about to come home from work. I was trying to get ready to come to the office. And for whatever reason, Virgil called me that day. Again, I wasn't an elder. He's an elder, and I'm the minister here, and I'm not at work. And he didn't say any of those things. He said, I don't even know why he called me, but I think it was a God thing. But he said, hey, are you okay? And I just broke down on him and said, I'm not. He didn't judge me. He prayed with me. He helped me. Fortunately, I got my medication squared away and got back in it. But to me, it showed me what a shepherd does. It showed me that he was going to fulfill the law of Christ. Technically, I'm an employee, right? But he didn't look at it that way. He looked at it as a brother who's hurting. And so I was in an emotional state, and sometimes that's a burden we go and help bear. Now, we can't bear it if we don't know about it, right? And that's another thing. We've got to be willing to say, listen, folks, I grew up, Todd can tell you too, we grew up in a suck it up mentality society. Oh, you're hurting? Suck it up. And I understand when it came to my depression and everything else, I could not suck it up. I tried, but I just couldn't. I believe God allowed me to bear that burden to especially tear down the walls of those who grew up like me, especially men. And that's why I try to be so open about it. For years, I didn't know. But then I was like, ooh, I don't want to tell anybody, because I don't want to show weakness. But we don't know if you don't tell. We can't help bear if we don't speak up. There are relational issues that we help bear. There are practical hardships. We talked a lot about those. But the context is it all comes back to spiritual needs. It isn't enabling irresponsibility, it's entering into suffering to offer support, prayer, presence, and accountability. He says there, when someone is caught in a transgression. That's the second part of verse 1. That means ensnared or overtaken by sin. Is our responsibility to condemn them and gossip about it? What did he say do? Restore them. How? Gently. Gently. Restoration is not simply confronting someone. It's walking with them until healing comes. And I do want to comment on, the reason I hesitated with Robert a little bit is I do agree with him. But I think he nailed it when he first said, listen, if I just nag somebody, even if I think I'm doing it out of love, they may throw up a wall. But if it is centered around love, and I'm doing it to build a bridge, if they ultimately get upset, then that's not on us. That's right. That's exactly right. We plant, we water, God supplies the increase. The goal's not to win an argument. Can I tell you that was my goal when I first got into this? I went to Mobile Christian because I was going to baptize the school. You bring on your denominational stuff. I got both barrels and I'm ready. You know what I did? Built a lot of walls. Sure did. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I had to grow, Dale. You're right. I think we all. Do we have the truth? You better believe we do. I wouldn't be doing this here if we didn't have the truth, if we weren't teaching the truth, would you? But we can't be pharisaical with it. It's got to be really that law of Christ, that love. And once I realized that, my ministry changed at Mobile Christian. It changed in the youth group. It changed as a preacher here because we're in the bridge building business, not the wall. The whole goal has to be not to say I'm right and you're wrong to this sinning brother or sister. It's to say, please come back. Does that make sense? Am I out of time? Yeah, I got to finish next week. I just don't want to leave out Romans 15. Let's have some comments as we close.
You were talking about if we see someone in sin, don't let that be the first time you've ever talked to that person.
Very true.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, don't say, hey, I learned that person's in sin. I'm going to go. Yeah, build a relationship.
Yeah.
Have a relationship. And, like I said, it's communal, right? We got to be communal. I'm not saying that, listen, I don't want to step off into anything. I'm not trying to guilt trip anybody, okay? So let me just use myself. Now, I preached the funeral. I was heavily involved in it. But what if I knew there was a family hurting, I didn't have jack to do on Saturday, but But I'm like, man, I ain't going to a funeral for a family member. I mean, I'm just going to stay. Why go? Is that the right attitude? No. And I'm not trying to say if you didn't come to the funeral, come forward today. I'm not saying that. Please understand it. I'm just using it as an example. I know not everybody here is an elder. And in fact, we understand that that's a responsibility not a whole lot of people are just, longing for or even qualified for maybe. I don't know. Not everybody here is the preacher, youth minister, associate minister, etc. But we all are ministers. And we are all called. Now, again, I'm not trying to step off into just about that. I'm just saying, let's think about our responsibilities. If I can help somebody, I've had people come to me, and again, I know Angie and their families in here, but even in this situation, I've had people who lost children come to me and say, if I could talk to them, let me know. To me, that is beautiful. They've lost their own child, and they said, hey, I'm willing to help them. If somebody comes to me depressed and I counsel them, I'm not going to tell them, suck it up, pray more. Maybe you don't pray enough. No, I'm going to say, hey, I've been there. I know what that burden feels like. And I'm going to try to help them bear it. Does that make sense? Grady?
One thing. Most people know about the bad accident I had on my
Right.
bike. I can say the same thing. I had to learn something that was hard for me in a lot of different ways. I had to learn to be humble
Yeah.
and not depend on myself, because I was bedridden for 5 months.
Right.
I'm saying is that
I believe that would be a burden, Grady.
we don't need to close up walls
Right.
when people are trying to help us.
That's right. That's right.
You've got to let people help you in certain times.
That's right.
And I had to, I cried a lot about that.
Sure. And I think just in the way we're created, especially if you study the male mindset, one of the top stressors on a man is to lose their job. Why? Because God instilled in us to provide and do. Again, I'm not talking about rights or anything like that. We're all equal. But I'm just saying that's the way God designed us. And I think that's probably why it was such a heavy burden. Not only the pain you're in, but you feel like this is my responsibility and you couldn't do it. But I understand exactly where you're coming from. Robert? I think we're out of time, too, after this.
Well, what Frankie said is true. You have to understand, you can't build a wall or take a fence. One thing is, people say you get over it, they say it in all fairness, honesty, and love. But you've got to understand the wrong thing to say. You never get over it. You learn to live with it, but you
Yeah.
never get over it.
Right.
But they're what they're trying to do is around, I always tell you, you'll heal.
You're right.
You'll be better.
Right.
You can't take offense. You can't.
That's right.
Become offended sometimes, because what somebody does or says is said in a good way. They just use the wrong words.
Yeah, and I could use a lot of examples of wrong that he just over the years people don't that maybe going on to their reward that have said things. I'm like, let's don't let that be. Like Miss Margaret said, let me go and handle that, and not you. But so yeah, there's so many things, and we'll talk more about that next week. Thank you all for being great comments today. Wow, really good.